Hey, 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 it's your girl Nay coming to you with another episode of As Told by Nay, the podcast. Hope everyone is doing well. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Been a busy week for me, for sure. Getting ready for the holiday season. Work has been crazy, just trying to keep a good mindset, stay positive, all those good things. But definitely wanted to come have this conversation with you guys. It's kind of like a spinoff from last week a little bit. In regards to the conversation that we were having about deadbeat dads. So shout out to Nicole that I had. She kind of dropped this gem on the show. And it kind of took on a life of its own. So she had made a comment that a lot of women, and she was generalizing, right? A lot of women feel so pressed about the role of the deadbeat dad because they're not able to be a deadbeat mom. We have made the comment about mama's babies, daddy's maybes, right? And how dads can easily, with the society that we live in, kind of venture off, do their own thing. But when a mom decides to have a baby, it's kind of like, all right, mom, this is your baby, whether dad is there or not. You've got to make the decisions. You've got to, be the responsible person. All these things, all this weight falls on the mothers, right? And she was basically saying, like, she posed a question. If we made it more common, more acceptable, less taboo for women to truly decide if they're ready to be a mom, then that conversation about the deadbeat dad a lot of times wouldn't even be a thing. So we're definitely gonna kind of continue that conversation. I have some great guests coming on to help me have this conversation. So grateful for them and their ability to be transparent with you guys today because it's going to be a pretty serious conversation. I want to start with the disclaimer that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Everyone is able to feel the way that they feel, and nobody should be able to take that away from you. And so as we have this conversation today, we're all adults. Let's be mindful that these women are coming on here to speak their truth. I am all for that. And no matter what your ideals are or what your beliefs are, we're here to have a conversation about something that definitely is happening. Whether you want to accept it and believe it or not, it's happening. And a lot of people are affected by the conversation that we're going to have today. So I'm going to go ahead and get my guest on here so we can get started. And I'm let them introduce themselves and then we're going to go from there. Hey!
Hi.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good deal, good deal. So go ahead and let the people know who you are.
My name is Jenna, and I actually work with Nay, so that's how I met her. What else? I'm a mom of two. Yeah.
Okay.
I love to dance. I love the beach, and here we are.
Okay. Well, welcome to As Told by Nay, Jenna. You're going to get to see a different side of me that is not work.
That's all right.
And so glad to have you here again. Very grateful for you being open to having this dialogue with me.
Absolutely.
All right. And then let's go ahead and get Miss Vanity on. Hey.
Hi.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Go ahead and let the people know who you are.
I am Vanity, 33-year-old, mother of one. I do have 3 bonus babies though. Dog, house, all the nice stuff we're supposed to have. So.
Right. What they tell us we're supposed to have, right?
Right.
All right. So these are my guests for tonight. But before we get into all the heavy, serious stuff, we're gonna go ahead and do this little segment I like to call Excuse Me, Come Again. I'm gonna ask you both of you guys, 2 random questions you did not get to prepare for. And then, just answer, just go with the flow, and we'll go from there. All right, so question number 1 is for Miss Vanity. Give us one of your guilty pleasures.
I don't know if it falls under self-care, but I have to get my nails and my feet done. It's just something, I don't care. It's going to get done. I don't care what's going on. During COVID, I had a personal nail tech come to my house because, yeah, it has to happen. So
I did too. I don't know if that would be deemed a guilty pleasure, though, because you should not feel guilty about getting your nails done. That is definitely just a pleasure. That definitely falls under self-care.
I just say guilty because as a mom, sometimes we feel guilty about doing things for ourselves.
Okay.
So that's why I say guilty. Because,
okay. I'll give you that one then. I'll give you that one. Okay. Question number 2 goes for Miss Jenna. When is the last time you did something for the first time, and what was it?
That's a good one.
Okay. So last weekend I was in Miami, which I've been to before. I was in South Beach, and I went to a swingers club.
Oh.
Totally unplanned. Just happened, Saturday night, being on South Beach and all the craziness, and just going with the flow of things.
Okay. That's a very interesting first. Sidebar. Yes, I've learned that there are a lot of swingers type clubs and resorts and things around here, where we live in Tampa area. And I did not realize that it was as popular as it is.
So I know Florida in general, Florida in general is just a little more out there and open with lots of things, but right. I didn't know so much about where we live. Tampa, yes, I've heard a little bit, but yeah, I don't know much about where we are.
Yeah, a couple of friends of mine, they indulge in the lifestyle, and so they talk to me about the different things, and I'm like, didn't even know all of these things existed around here, but that's cool. So it looks like Ms. Vanity is having some issues, so I'm gonna double back with the next question to you, Jenna. Okay. What is the biggest embarrassment that you have experienced to date? Something that happened that was just completely oh my God.
Oh my God. I don't know if I have a lot of embarrassments.
Embarrassing moments?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. What was an embarrassing moment? Strap malfunction or something, yeah, I don't know if I've had a true embarrassing moment. Maybe when I've okay. So the one that pops to mind I can think of, and it's not super interesting, but we had some people at our house once that were doing some work, and I needed to move my car out of the driveway, and I thought that I could move it around and out through the grass a little bit without making the contractors move their car. Mm-hmm. And instead of putting it in park like I thought I did, I hit the gas in reverse and I plowed out of the driveway and just smashed right into their truck. So that was super embarrassing.
I'm sure it sounds like it. Mm-hmm. I can remember somebody asked me that question a couple of weeks ago, and there's one embarrassing moment that I don't think it will ever not exist in my brain and live there rent free. Walking down, I was leaving, so I went to an HBCU, and there was this building like a cafeteria that we called the CAF, and it was like very, very far away from where the actual dorms, right? Where the actual dorms were, where we were living. And I'm walking, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. It's after class one day. And I get all the way to my dorm, which again is way on the other side of the campus. And there's this car that kind of like pulls up on this street that we call the set. And the guy was like beeping the horn at me. And so I had noticed the car when I left the CAF, but me being me, I'm like very timid, kind of shy. I'm like holding my books and just going on about my way. He finally gets my attention, and I, go over and I'm like, yes. And he was like, I've been trying to get your attention since you were leaving from the CAF. Your dress is stuck. I walked the entire way from the CAF with the back of my dress tucked underneath itself, ass all out. It was, every time I saw that guy from that day on, it was just like, oh my God. Oh my God.
No. Oh.
But we can laugh about it now. I remember somebody hitting the mailbox in the car. Okay, brother, nobody asked you.
Right. I don't think a particular story. You're out here snitching now.
Oh my goodness. All right. So, and the last question goes to Miss Vanity. Question number 4. What is something that you have done that you will never forget, but probably will never do again? So kind of exciting, but at the same time, like, woo, won't try that again. I'm good.
It's hard for me because anything I did it because I wanted to. Like, that's just how I am. So,
okay. So no regrets. I'm here for that.
Yeah.
I'm here for
no,
that.
honestly, no.
Okay, well then
dating count? Like
so then give us something that you've done before that was like, ooh, I might try that again. That was actually, I liked that.
Ooh, okay, so don't judge me. There were no children or anybody under 18 present. I went on a cruise, and I was in a relationship on this cruise, and we had a balcony room. And, we enjoyed that balcony.
I just did that back in August. That's no big deal.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
it was amazing out there with the ocean and the waves. Oh, yeah. No.
This is a no judgment zone. You good.
We enjoyed that balcony. Like I said, there were no children able to see us or anything like that. But I would absolutely do that again.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. All right. So, see, not so bad. Those were the excuse me come again questions. And so before we jump into this very serious conversation, I'm going to give both of you guys the opportunity to tell us what we're toasting to for the evening. So let's start with Miss Jenna, and then we'll have Miss Vanity, and then we'll all take a drink together. So what are we toasting to tonight, Jenna?
I think I'm toasting to just like, peace and love and people feeling happy with where they are and content and just all the good vibes that are out there, because there's just so much negative. So just all the positive for everybody.
For sure. Definitely can drink to that. And then Miss Vanity?
I would like to toast to better health, better mental health, better emotional health.
Yes.
Just being in a better space overall. Like she said, so much negative out there, and I think we all deserve a little slice of happiness.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hear, hear. All right, so let's get right into it. If I had to give tonight's conversation a title, I would call it Planned Parenthood. And we're going to talk about what I mean by that and why I call it that. And we're going to talk about it. And again, please, guys, like, we're all adults here. We're able to have our own opinions and our own feelings. Let's just be mindful. Let's just be mindful of the sensitivity of what we're talking about here. So we're talking about abortion. I feel like that word in itself is just so taboo. People don't want to hear it. People don't feel like, you know, it should be spoken out loud. You don't have many people you can trust when it comes to it. And I get that since not only from being a woman, but also because when this conversation came about, I put out a post on both Facebook and Instagram. And I was just like, hey, if anyone has had an abortion or works for Planned Parenthood or wouldn't mind talking about just how they feel about it, their opinion, whatever, on As Told by Nay, you know, hit me up and let's see what we can do. And literally, inbox got flooded, right? So many people had an opinion. But when I was like, okay, so you're going to come on the show and talk about it with me? They're like, oh, don't you go live? Well, yeah, I go live. Oh, I saw some of your videos. Like, you have a lot of views. Okay, yeah, that's the point. So that we can kind of have this dialogue in front of a big audience to get the conversation going. Oh, no, I can't do that. Okay, so out of all of those messages and conversations that I was having with people, there were a total of 3. A total of 3 people that were willing to say, you know what, I don't mind coming on and having the dialogue, which is not crazy to me, but at the same time it is, because a lot of what I was getting from that was embarrassment, feeling guilty. A bunch of people don't know their story. I don't want to be judged, just a whole bunch of different things. So we're going to talk about all of those things today. And again, so grateful for you guys to come through and, you know, just be honest and transparent about this and having this dialogue with me. So let's start from the beginning. When we think about abortion, what is the mindset like growing up, and when you started to learn about the birds and the bees and pregnancy and all these things, and then abortion, I'm sure, came about because my mom was talking to me about that when we started to have the conversation about the birds and the bees. Like, that was one of the things that came up. So when you think back to just like all of that, what was that initial thought, or what was the initial seed planted in your head about abortion?
So I don't think my mom actually talked about it really. I mean, you know, like, we had the sex talk and puberty and all that stuff. I don't think we talked about abortion. I don't know when the first time was that I like heard about it. I don't really remember. I do remember it was kind of like for the people that, you know, maybe had a lot of unprotected sex, you know, were pretty promiscuous. You know, it was not something that a lot of people did. If they did do it, we didn't know about it. There was one girl in my high school that I remember got pregnant her senior year, and it was like, ooh, you know, like, oh my gosh, don't, you know, be like her. This is, you know, such a poor example. But yeah, I don't remember like who even brought it up to me for the first time.
Okay. How about you, Vanity?
It's such a stark contrast for me, especially with, like she said, she went to a school where it didn't really happen. It could be a community type thing, but my mom, we talked about sex, we talked about the birds and the bees, we talked about getting pregnant, but abortion was not on the table. I grew up in I'm not going to say super religious household, but my mom was a Christian. She loves God. You know, we went to church, and the thing that was said about abortion was, it's a sin. You don't do it. God said it's murder. You don't do it. That was it. That was the talk on it. There was no going into it. There was no information given on it. But in contrast to her, I went to a school where that happened with a lot of girls where, you know, we were in 8th, 9th grade and they were getting pregnant. And so their mothers, not wanting them to have babies so young, were actually taking them to get these
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's nothing I dealt with that young at that age personally, but I knew a few. And I mean, like one girl I cheered with, we were in the 9th grade and we had only been in school for about 3 weeks. And a senior got a hold of her and that was it.
And so when my mom brought it up, it was exactly like you said, Vanity. It was more of the conversation like, okay, you're starting high school now. You know, I know that kids your age are starting to do these things, but it was like if you have sex, you're going to get pregnant. And if you get pregnant, you're going to have this baby because you can't have no abortion. It was like it came up because it was a no-go. Like, we don't believe in that. A very spiritual household as well. It's like, if this happens, I think it was more of like trying to put that fear in me. Like, well, you're going to be a young mama because we not doing that. Right. And so, you know, in school, I don't know. I think Jenna's around our age too. If maybe just a little bit older.
I'm older for sure. I'm 43.
So just a little bit older. You're not that much older than us. So when I was in high school, so I know that probably with Jenna too, we had like the home ec class where there was that project where you got to take the baby home and it cried all night and it just was real extra. And I don't know about you guys in school, but for whatever reason, the girls at my school, they wanted to do that. Like, they wanted that project. They wanted to take the baby home. And I think because our generation, like the older millennials and then like some of the younger, whatever the group is right before us, the mindset was you grow up, you get married, you have kids. Like, it was put in us that was the way it was supposed to be anyway. So the idea behind like getting pregnant and having kids, I don't know if it was exciting to some people, even at such an early age, or it was like interesting. But a lot of the girls at my school, like they were on that. They were very, I don't know, not me though, because my mama ain't play that. And I knew I'm going to college. I'm going to travel the world. Like, no babies right now. I have a bunch of brothers. Like, it was not going down that way for me. But kind of like Vanity was saying, abortion was being talked about at school. I went to a pretty urban high school, and it was not a hush-hush thing on our campus. People were talking about it, and it was almost me being naive and not really knowing too much at that age. It almost seemed like a form of birth control.
Yep.
Where so many girls were doing this, and it was because, okay, oh yeah, I got pregnant, but I'm just going to get an abortion and it's going to be fine. And it was like, because my mom had instilled that fear in me, it's like, what? You're going to do what? Oh my God. But let's fast forward into early adulthood. So do you feel like the way abortion was brought to you to be understood younger affected your mindset about it as an adult? Or did you kind of come up with your whole own idea of like what this looks like?
I will say it's a 50-50 thing for me, because I've always been the type where my mom always said I was her most independent child and I was her most rebellious. I always marched to the beat of my own drum. So for me, it was, okay, well, I know that this isn't something that is looked kindly upon, especially in the church community. And like I said, I was raised in it very heavily. I'm talking, instead of trick or treating, we were doing hallelujah at church.
Right.
So we were in church. I was in dance. I was in the choir. I was heavily involved in children's church. Like, so I knew what was expected of me. You know, it was stay a virgin until you get married. You know, God wants you to be pure when you get married. And, you know, abortion is a sin. It's murder. But at the same time, I've always been that's their choice, that's their business type of person. So as I got older and I became more independent, I leaned more into that's their choice, that's their business, and kind of steered a little bit away from hey, you're not supposed to do that. Like that judgmental overtone that comes with that. But again, it's like I just leaned into, you know, being more independent. And I guess being in college, because me and Nay went to the same school together. When you're around all the different people and you get to know these people, some of these girls are your sisters, you know, you join organizations and you understand that, okay, this might really be the best choice for them. And who am I to decide what they're supposed to do for them?
Very, very good point.
Yeah. I was not raised in a really religious household at all, actually. Super open, kind of hippie parents that, you know, love everybody. And yeah, so, but we just didn't really talk about it much. The high school I went to was not urban, but it wasn't suburban either. It was really a pretty mixed high school with people from all over the place. And I had friends in all kinds of different groups and categories. I think for me, I've just always been under kind of the thought that, you know, as long as you're not hurting somebody or purposely trying to hurt somebody, that, you know, I'm not going to be judgmental of what you decide to do with your life. You know, it's your life. And as long as you're, you know, not a horrible human, you know, you can make choices.
Right.
Okay. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with Miss Jenna. I want you to take this time to give us your story and your journey. Just to put a disclaimer out there again for the people watching. If abortion bothers you or you feel a type of way about it, I'm going to ask that you just don't tune in right now, because these two young ladies have been gracious enough to come on here and actually, you know, give us the understanding of, you know, just where their heads were at. And what happened and took place in regards to their journey with making this really big, hard decision, or maybe it wasn't hard for them. I don't know. We're going to see right now. But if that's something that you can't embrace, I don't mind. Go ahead and click that exit button right now, because we don't want any negativity in regards to this combo. So, Jenna, go ahead and share with us your journey.
So let's see. I was 30 when I had my first kid. I was married, you know, doing the whole thing like you're supposed to do, right? First birthday comes around for her, and I was on birth control, and I got pregnant. So, right, married, you know, already have a kid. You think like, oh, you know, no big deal. Like you just have the next one. Well, for us, financially, we were having lots of problems, and we had the housing market had, you know, crashed. This is like 2009, right? I was not working because I was at home with our first daughter. So now I am 31. I'm pregnant. We had tried to avoid a pregnancy, and we were being sued by our mortgage company to pay for the balance that was due on our home that we had foreclosed on.
Oh, wow.
And we couldn't afford that. We couldn't afford to pay them that, right? So we ended up then having to file bankruptcy. So we were eating, you know, peanut butter and jelly and beans and rice, and, you know, and we're like barely just keeping things kind of afloat. We lived in Maryland then. The winters were really, really cold. We couldn't afford to run our heat because it was an oil heat. So we had a space heater in our daughter's room. So she, obviously, because she's a baby, right? She couldn't get cold. But my husband and I would just put like 6 blankets and like, you know, sweatsuits and all the things on right to sleep. So we talked about it a lot. And, you know, the stress of what that would have been to try and bring another little person into our family, knowing that we were already kind of barely just doing the bare necessities for the other little person that we had. It just didn't make sense for us. And we talked about it for a couple weeks, and I reached out to Planned Parenthood. that was we were in Annapolis then in Maryland, and talked to the person on the phone and made the appointment, and they sent me information. And then I remember the day that he took me, there were protesters outside and all these people with signs. And when you got out of the car, they were, like yelling things at you. Again, me not being a really religious person, that part of it didn't bother me, but it was that people were thinking I was this careless, thoughtless person that could just so easily throw away, this opportunity and this life, that it was just, like no big thing. He dropped me off because we didn't have any family that lived with us there. So he had to stay at home with our 1-year-old. So I was in there by myself. I remember sitting there for hours because they wanted to kind of, I feel like, make sure that you truly wanted it, and almost see if they'd wait you out to see if you change your mind and leave. And then there was a lady that took me back, made me watch a video. I remember asked me a bunch of questions about, had I thought about adoption? Was anybody pressuring me to be there against my will? A couple different things before I actually went back to like where the procedure was. It was pretty quick, I feel like. The doctor acted like it was no big deal, like just kind of like did it, put me in the little recovery room area. I was there for a little while. But I didn't feel like I could talk about it with anybody. Like I didn't tell my best friend. I didn't even tell my mom. I just didn't feel like I could talk about it. I felt like it was something only he and I knew, and people would not understand. And so it just, I didn't. I mean, my mom died in 2018. Never told her. I told my best friend years later. She's very Catholic. It came up in regards to somebody else, and I just felt the need to say, like, well, how would you feel if I told you I'd had an abortion? Like, would that change your thoughts on me? And she said, like, no, of course, like she herself doesn't believe in it for her, but she's not going to, judge other people.
Right.
But yeah, that's why I had one. That's my story.
So for you, it was a decision that you and your partner made together, for, just your own personal financial situation and wanting to do what you felt was best for you guys at the time and your other little one and things.
Yeah, we just, again, we hadn't planned on having one. I was on birth control. It was just a mini pill though, because I was still nursing my first daughter. So it just didn't work, right? Like it just happened. And in an ideal world, would we have just gone ahead and had that second baby? Of course. But to be responsible about it and to be able to provide for both of them, because we were already barely able to do it for the three of us, it wouldn't have been a good situation for anybody. It just wouldn't have. So,
and just because I know you personally, so I know that since you have other kids now, and so did you ever like look back on that and be like, oh, now I have this other baby, did I do the right thing? Like, did you ever kind of go back and forth with your decision, like after the fact?
Not right away, but yes, like later on. So my girls are almost 4 years apart. So then like later on, when we did have the second one, I mean, there was part of me that was kind of like, if we were going, first of all, we were never even having two. We'd always decided we were one and done. And then my best friend had a baby and the older one loved the baby. And so we were like, oh, maybe we're being selfish. So that's why there's such a big gap. But, if they could have been closer together, right? Like maybe I should have just gone ahead and had that one, and they would have been closer together. And then, they'd be more at the same place in their lives than they are now, where they're, a teenager and a younger one. But at the same time, like I'm not somebody that lives with regrets. I just feel like it's a waste of my energy. And I feel like I'm a good person that tries to do the best with the information that I have at hand, right? And at that time, he and I both agreed that it just was not a good idea for us. It just wasn't.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
All right, Miss Vanity, if you would mind going down memory lane and kind of now giving us your story, your journey.
Of course. I do want to tell Jenna, I feel like that was one of the bravest and most sincere decisions to make for you and your family. And a lot of people don't understand how hard that choice probably was for you. But seeing as how you have so much, like you said, y'all were already struggling with one baby, and it's life. It literally happens every day to people. And to make the choice not to bring other, small humans into the world and make them struggle with you was absolutely brave. So I just want to tell you that. And I thought that was
thank you.
So I think for me with my situations, definitely totally different. I had already had my first child while we were in school together, Nate. So when this situation happened for me, he was about 8. And everybody was on the whole, you've been with your boyfriend for about 4 years, when you guys getting married, when y'all having a baby, not knowing that I was in this very physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive relationship. That, so a baby for me was definitely out of the cards. I didn't want to bring a baby into that situation because I was already trying to figure out how to get myself and my son out of it. So a baby for me would have kept me trapped. It would have kept me shackled to this man. Yeah. And we actually ended up ending our relationship. And this was in 2018. We ended up ending our relationship the summer of 2018. I was on birth control as well. I have the implant, the Nexplanon. It's 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, you get it taken out and you get it replaced. Well, dealing with all the stress from trying to get out of this relationship, ending the relationship, being, sorrowful, even though I knew it was a bad relationship, you still mourn it. There's a part of you that mourns, the loss of that relationship. And because I had been in it so long, it was all I knew for years. So just the prospect of starting over, and we lived together. So we were moving out of our place. He had left a bunch of furniture there, so they were billing us for it. I ended up having to pay for it. I was a single mom. It was just me and my son. And so I found out I was pregnant at the end of 2018. I had been having a lot of stomach issues, just a lot of pain in my pelvic area, and could not figure out why. Now, I guess I had really been diligent over the years, because my son is 8, about making sure my birth control was, on time and on point. But I guess because of everything that was going on, it somehow slipped my mind to go ahead and get it taken out and replaced. And I did not know I had gotten pregnant right towards the end of our relationship. So when I found out at the end of 2018, the first person I called was my mom. Like, one thing my mom has always been is non-judgmental. Even as heavy in the church as she is, she's always been a rock for me. She's always been somebody I can go and talk to, and she does not judge. She might not like what's going on, but she's not going to judge me. She's not going to make me feel bad. And so I immediately called my mother, bawling from the house. Like, I was like, Mom, I got something to tell you. Don't be mad at me. Mind you, I'm 27 years old, but I'm like, please don't be mad at me. She's like, what's wrong? And so I told her, and she was like, okay, well, come talk to me and we'll just figure out what you want to do. I called him. We weren't even on speaking terms when I found out. He had to move into his new relationship that he was having while we were together. He had to move into that. We weren't. I literally had to unblock this man just to call him and tell him, hey, this is what's going on. I knew immediately I did not want the baby. It was not an easy decision. I cried for days. before even making a phone call to Planned Parenthood. But once I sat down and I spoke to my mom, and I actually wrote out a pros and cons list, and it just the pros did not outweigh the cons. It would have kept me to him, and I was drowning, and I could not be the mother that I needed to be to my child that is here. Had I had that and stayed with them, so I made a decision. And at first I struggled with it was really selfish. And I actually found out much further along than I thought I was. I've never been a show when I'm pregnant. I don't start showing until like my last few months. So I was about 4 months pregnant and did not know. I was hanging, I was partying, I was drinking. I didn't know any of that. So when I went in, the doctor was like, "Oh, you're like 7 weeks." Excuse me, sir, I'm what?
Wow.
He's like, "Yeah, you look though." I wouldn't even know. I didn't know it either. Like my clothes size had not changed, and because I was on the birth control, it does not. You don't get cycles when you're on it. So I had not had a cycle in years, and so I just didn't expect to see one. And because I didn't see one, that wasn't abnormal for me. So I never suspected that I was pregnant. I did not. I went in there telling them, like, "Oh, I'm having a lot of pain. You know, I've had kidney issues in the past." And the first question they had going is, "Well, could you be pregnant?" I was like, "No, hell no." Oh. And they came back was like, "Yep, yes, you are." like showed me the ultrasound and everything, and I was like, "There's a whole baby in." And so, like she said, when you go to Planned Parenthood, there are people out there, and they're kind. For them to be out there for God, they don't say the kindest things to you. Like they're not nice at all. Even though me and the guy wasn't on good terms, because he didn't want to mess up what he had going on in his current relationship, we agreed that terminating the pregnancy was the best choice for both of us. So he did meet me there. And he stayed the whole time. I'm not sure if his girlfriend knew, because he was mute phone a lot all the time. I didn't really care. I just want him to do what he's supposed to do. That's it. But when you go in like that, you wait a really long time. And I do think it's for them they're giving you the time to make sure that this is absolutely what you want. Because even when you go in the back, they do ask you like, "Okay, so, are you sure? Do you want to see the ultrasound? Maybe, do you want to know what gender it is, depending on how far along you are?" And because I was as far along as I was, they absolutely asked me, "Do you want to know what gender it is? Do you want to see the ultrasound?" And I just started bawling. And I thought, you go in and you take like a little pill and they're done. They're like, "Well, no, because you're too far along for that." So I ended up actually having to have a 2-day procedure because I was too far along. So they put like this Japanese seaweed into your uterus, and it causes you to have contractions. So basically they forced the early labor, and they send you home. And I was home alone going through this. My son stayed with my mom for the night, and that was one of the hardest nights of my life still to this day. It's you having contractions like you're in labor, so it's pretty painful. And I was scared, but I just prayed, and they tell you to come back, as soon as they open up in the morning so that they can do the procedure. And while they were doing the procedure, there was a very nice nurse who asked me if I wanted her to pray with me. She's like, "I don't know if you're religious." She said, "We ask everybody, would you like me to pray with you?" And she said, "I'm going to pray with you, and then they're going to put you under." And she's, she held my hand the entire time, even while I was under. And when you come back out, they're like, "Okay, all done. Time to go." They put you in recovery. And what's crazy about recovery is I was in there with so many girls. You would think that, it would be like just a recovery area. Nope, it's just full of recliners, and it's just girls in recliners. We're all just sitting in there, and you have to sit in there for a certain amount of time before they'll let you leave. And I even remember crying when I was leaving. I cried the whole way home, and I cried for months because of the guilt that I felt. This, like I said, I felt like I was being selfish. But my mom knew, my best friend knew. And at the time, I had a really good group of cousins who I was hanging really tight with, and they were all really there for me. So the group, the tribe that I had at the time was very supportive, and I really needed that. And sometimes I still think about it to this day. I don't feel as guilty or as bad because I feel like I did make the best choice for me and my son. But, like you said, because I do want more kids, that's when it kind of crosses my mind like, well, that's not fair because you had the opportunity to do that and you didn't do it. So I wrestle with it sometimes, but I don't beat myself up about it.
And thank you for sharing your story. So I kind of want to go right in and ask both you guys because so Jenna kind of talked about, okay, this was a decision that she made with her partner, her husband at the time, I'm sorry. And she didn't feel like she could talk to her mom about it. She didn't feel like she had anybody. Whereas on the other hand, Vanity spoke to being able to call her mom, being able to have those cousins that she was able to lean into. Do you feel like it's important to tell this to people? Like, who needs to even know that this thing has happened? Or like, how do you guys feel in regards to just what that support is supposed to even look like?
I think it's probably an individual, like, case by case decision, kind of like it's a case by case basis to even make this decision. If it works for you to even have an abortion to begin with. And I think obviously support systems for lots of major things in life are huge. And Nay knows this. My husband, who I have mentioned, he died very unexpectedly 3.5 years ago.
Sorry. I'm so
thanks. So I'm a widow, right, with these 2 kids, and my support system for this phase of my life has been amazing, and I can't imagine being where I am now in my grief journey without having them.
Right.
As far as where I was with the abortion, I wish I could have told more people, but so many of my friends at that point in my life were all having their first babies, and everybody was excited, and it was this new amazing thing, and we were all going through it. So I didn't feel like I could say, hey, guess what? Like, I'm pregnant, but I'm not going to keep it. I felt like I had to just completely keep that to myself. I think it's amazing that Vanity had a support system, and her procedure was much more involved than mine. So I'm so thankful that she had that, and she did feel like she could open up and share that with some people. And it just depends.
Definitely. I agree. I feel like it's case by case because some people are more private people, and even if they have the opportunity to share it with people, they don't want to. But like I said, I think because I've always been I do what I want type of person, like your opinion is appreciated, but it's not necessary. And so if I did it, it was my body, my choice, literally. Like, because at the end of the day, you weren't going to raise this baby. I was going to raise this baby. I was going to have to go through having this baby. And another thing that helped influence my decision, like I said, I didn't know I was pregnant. So for 4 months, I was drinking. I didn't know what this had done to that child. That would not have been fair as well, to bring a child into this world with who knows what type of problem. I hadn't been taking any prenatals, anything.
Right.
So that wasn't fair as well. So I didn't need anybody's approval or opinion. I told who I felt like I could trust and who I knew, like she said, would be a support system for me, who I knew wouldn't judge me, and I didn't need anybody in my ear. I just needed you to hold my hand. And that was what they did for me.
And you make and I just kind of want to speak on that a little bit. A lot of the, a good chunk, I won't say a lot, but a good chunk of the women that reached out to me in regards to the post that I made on social media were talking about how not even that they just didn't want to have the support, but that they couldn't because of going to feel judged, that people wouldn't understand because of their reasoning, which for me, now as an adult, as a clinician, as someone who understands the importance of mental health,
right.
what you do for you is most important, and it doesn't have to be explained to other people. But once upon a time, I was even, I failed as a friend. I had a friend of mine in college that came to me wanting to get an abortion, and she asked me if I could give her a ride, and I told her no, because I didn't agree with the decision that she was making. Oh my God, how could you do this? And that was very selfish. And since then, I've apologized for that, but a lot of women experience that, where they did go to someone that they felt they could trust, and the reaction was, well, why would you do this for that reasoning? And kind of like Vanity was just saying, where she was kind of just living her life going with the flow because she didn't even know she was pregnant. The baby could have had these different complications, and a lot of women, they know early on that this baby is going to have issues or complications or things that they feel like they don't want. That it would be selfish of me to bring a kid into the world with, this quality of life.
Right.
But then the conversation kind of goes into, well, there's all these doctors and there's all these different things. But I think ultimately that comes down to exactly like Jenna was saying, like what you choose to do for your life is, doesn't have to be explained to anyone. When you guys think about your mental health in regards to just being in a space of having to make that hard decision, did it play on you at all? Like, if people would think that your reasoning for making this decision was good enough, or like, will they even understand where my head was at when I did this, or not so much?
I didn't care. Not even a little bit. Like I said, I knew where mentally, I knew where I was emotionally. And like I said, I was literally dragging myself up out of that relationship by my teeth. And I knew that I had to get back into the right space to be able to take care of the child that I already had here.
Right.
So I literally did not care if anybody cared what my reasoning was, or if they agreed or approved, or if they felt like it was a good enough reason to even do what I did. That didn't matter. I generally did not care.
Because it's none of their business.
Period.
I think part of, this new age, that's amazing, and we can all stay in touch, and there's social media and there's all these things. It's great, but at the same time, it's also given us almost like a reason to be in everybody's business. And we all know what everybody's doing all the time. And it's like,
people just feel like they have title to an opinion of people's life. You're not.
Yeah. Right.
You're not.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like you, I've always been super independent. I don't care so much about what people think, but for that specific thing, I did, just because of the time frame and the place that we were at in our lives. And, we didn't even really tell people what was happening with us financially. I mean, we shared it with my dad because he helped us out a little bit. But other than that, people had no idea that we were being sued and filing bankruptcy. Like, we were just embarrassed because we had tried so hard to always make these, like responsible decisions. Right. And, went to college and had degrees, and like, oh my God, what were Jenna and Greg doing? Like, what happened to them? So yeah, we didn't tell anybody. We just didn't. But now, right, like, fast forward 20 years or whatever it is, or not that long, but, 12 years, I guess, because my older daughter's 13. So fast forward 12 years. And so much else has now happened. And I've had so many opinions from what has happened in the past 3 years that people have given me, that I don't care. Like, I don't care unless you have been me and you have experienced something like this. Like, I don't want to hear it. I want nothing to do with it.
Right.
I just don't.
That's it right there. Like she said, unless you have been me and nobody's been me but me.
Right.
I generally do not care what you think about what I'm doing. I have to do what I have to do for me. And as long as I'm not physically or mentally or emotionally hurting somebody else, I'm good. Like, obviously I made the best decision for me. And I did want to say, Jenna, I did notice that you said at the time the circle of friends that you had or the community that you had were in the stage of life of getting married and having kids. So that was a tough conversation for you to have. I was a little younger when my situation happened, and none of my friends were married. None of them, like, we had all had our kids pretty young, 20, 21. Yeah. And so most of our kids were at that age now where they were able to do things on their own. Like, we didn't really have small babies. Mm-hmm. And I will say, I'm not going to name names, but out of the circle of friends that, I had at the time, at least 3 of them had already had an abortion. So I was in a circle of like-minded people. I was in a circle of people who understood that sometimes you have to make these hard decisions to put yourself in a place mentally and emotionally, and just in life, period. So, it was a difference just in community and circle at the time.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is a difference in the way that abortions are received culturally? You are African American and you are white for a reason, and we're gonna talk about it because that's what I do here on That So by Nate. We address the elephant in the room. And so, when we look at culturally how there's a difference on how we think about life in general, do you guys feel like as a Black woman, Vanity, do you feel like the ideals behind abortion or like the understanding of it weighs differently than it does a non-Black
white chick
woman?
It's all right.
You know what? I think I'll say yes, because like she stated, Jenna has stated, she had more free-loving, almost kind of hippie parents. So it probably wasn't that her parents were really against it. They just never really brought it up. Like she said, it really just wasn't brought up, versus with us growing up with Black mamas. It was like, hey, listen, no, that's a sin, because, we grew up with very religious mothers or mothers who were involved in the church. And so I do think there's also a stigma in the Black community when it comes to Black women and children. For whatever reason, people feel like we are supposed to just walk around with a whole bunch of kids. There's a stigma of a whole bunch of different baby daddies. And it's like, some of the conversations I hear in our community, I dated a white guy all through high school. That was my boo thing. You know what I'm saying? So being around just his family and just his friends and being in that community for a while, and then being submerged in the Black community at HBCU, the conversations are so different.
Right.
Like, when I say they are total opposite ends. Like, some of the stuff we talk about are not talked about or even looked at, frowned upon, anything in their communities. But in ours, it's like, So I will definitely, I'll definitely say it's definitely a cultural thing. For me, I think it is.
No, I agree. I think it's a cultural thing too, for sure. I think, I mean, like I said, I don't know anybody that's ever admitted within my circle of people that's ever admitted to having one. I'm the only one. We didn't talk about it. I don't really remember many people talking about it at all. My parents, because they were hippies, my parents had a lot of friends who were Blacks. That were Black. I dated a guy in high school that was Black. So I mean, like, being around, the white, I mean, not religion though, but just, like the white suburban, middle class people. They don't talk about it. They just don't talk about that stuff. It's, I mean, I had sex for the first time when I was 16. That was like a whoo, like you didn't talk about it. I talked to my mom about birth control, but she never said to me, like, if you would get pregnant, we're not having an abortion. There was birth control. There were all the options. Here's what we can do. And here, we're going to the doctor and getting you on the pill. But there was never a
There's no
abortion.
No.
Yeah, we just didn't talk about it.
Yeah. In our community, there's no birth control. You don't, because what you want to be on birth control for? You having sex? Why you having sex? Like with Black mama?
Right. And I feel like that's why the abortion rate when I was in high school was so high.
It is a form of birth control in our community because they don't talk about birth control, and because the stigma around birth control, even for us and in our community, is if your mama find out you want or even thinking about birth control, that means you thinking about or even having sex, and you're finna get in trouble.
It is
so see, I didn't have a hard time telling my mom that I was thinking about having sex for the first time when I was 16. And we went and got birth control, but I couldn't tell her that I had an abortion at 31.
She took you to get birth control?
Yeah, she took me to the doctor. Like, she made an appointment with my pediatrician. We went to the doctor. We talked all about it, and he wrote me a prescription for the pill.
I got on birth control when I was 20 years old.
I got on birth control in college up at FAMU. Absolutely. When I was 19, I went to our little clinic. And I was having these terrible, terrible cycles. This was before I got my implant, because I didn't get my implant until after I had my son. Before that, I was on the pill. Right. So I was having these terrible cycles, and I remember going home for Christmas and telling my mom, and we went and seen my gyno here in Jacksonville, and that was when I got on the pill, when I was like 19 going on 20 years old. Yep. But before that, no, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
But were you having sex before that?
Well, no, I did not have sex until I was like 18. Okay. I was a senior in high school, but I still couldn't go to my mom, even if I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it before actually doing it, of course. Right, but I still couldn't go to my mom and say, well, Mom, because condoms break, they fail, they pop. Maybe I could get some form of no. Had I gone to her, that means I'm thinking about sex. And why am I thinking about sex? Because I'm not married.
Right. Yep. I said, let me get out of Sharon house before I let any man defile me. I got to be away from home. But okay. So before we get out of here, question. Oh my God. I, as a clinician, feel like it's very important to change the narrative when it comes to the conversation about abortion and just even sex or preventative care beforehand. When they started to talk about these laws changing, everyone was in an uproar. Oh, it's the woman's ability to choose and all of these different things. And, there was the people saying, oh, this is a good thing because abortion is killing people, and pro-life this, pro-life that, telling people how they're supposed to live their lives. It's pro-life, but you rather this kid grow up in poverty than this mom make the decision not to do it. And then you had those other people on the other end that were very extreme about, like, this is how can you tell me what to do with my body, or whatever the case may be. When we talk about it, though, there's still a stigma and a taboo. Y'all did all of this uproar about it, yet when the conversation comes up, you're not wanting to talk about it and be open and really talk about the fact that it truly is your choice. Like, me as a woman, I should be able to decide at any given time if I want to bring forth life or if I don't. And people will, well, you shouldn't be having sex if you don't want to have a baby. Well,
keep your legs closed.
Craziness, because whatever.
Yes, I know.
So even with the conversation with guys, because I feel like women should have these open dialogue with the men as well. If I could just kind of, are you guys like dating or seeing anybody, or like, what is your current relationship status?
with my part, I have a living nanny. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I live with my man. I do. So
Okay.
I'm engaged. I do not live with him,
Yeah.
but I am engaged.
Okay. So is this a conversation that you guys have had with your current partners? Like as far as what
Yes.
you've been through in the past, and if would it ever be a decision made again? Like, do you think at the age you are now, like, okay, this possibly could have to take place again?
We've had
Is
the
it a
conversation
conversation that you've even had with them?
Yeah, we've had the conversation because he's actually been with someone where they made the decision to do that previously. So we've had the conversation, and his response is the same. It's always whatever we need to do that's best for us in that situation. Now we are at the age where we want to get married and have more kids, at least one more. So we do talk about if it happens, we're fine with it now. But that's because of where we are, the place that we are, in our life and being together. But we have had that open dialogue. And he told me his situation, and I told him my story, just like I told y'all. He wasn't judgmental. He was supportive of me. I was supportive of him. And our standpoint is just we will always do what's best for us and our family.
Okay.
I love that. Mine's a little different. So he had a kid in his early 20s with somebody that he was seeing, and they got pregnant. He is Mexican. He is super Catholic. His brother's a priest. I'm not religious at all. So I kind of tiptoed around it for a while. It was coming up with the whole Roe v. Wade thing, and I'm like all just like, this is our choice, and bullshit, and I don't know, like, and he's all like, whoa, like you were awfully passionate about this, and and so finally I was just like, well, there's a reason why I have had an abortion.
Right.
And I hope that this does not change how you feel about me, but like, this is what has happened. These are all the things. He wasn't judgmental or anything about that. He very much does believe that, like he did, you have, you choose to have sex, you get, pregnant, you have the baby. That's kind of where he's coming from. So we just don't agree on that. It's something that we just probably shouldn't talk about very much. He has had a vasectomy, however, so we are not worried about having any more kids. So that's amazing. Neither one of us.
That is awesome of him. My gosh, that needs to be your next podcast. That is awesome of him. Because I always
true, because no man wants to chop their balls off.
They
oh
don't.
My God.
And it's like, sir, first of all, it's reversible. It's damn near pain-free, they said. It's an outpatient procedure. Whereas when we give birth, we literally have the opportunity, the chance to die every single time. If y'all feel so strongly about it, go get a vasectomy until you're ready to have kids.
Yes.
It's easy. And their insurance covers it.
It's easy.
It is. My late husband had one too. After we had our second daughter and we knew we were absolutely done and we didn't want to have to worry about this, he went and had one. I drove him there. I waited in the waiting room for maybe 30 minutes.
Yep.
He came out, drove him home. He had a little bag of iced peas. He sat on there for a little while. He was like mildly sore for a couple of days, maybe took some Tylenol or something. That was it. It was like,
and it's
no big deal.
So if you change your mind and you want kids later on, guess what? Go get a reverse and have you some kids, bro.
But if we get our tubes tied, it is not reversible. So why is it that it's our responsibility to be in charge of the birth control in the relationship? At least that's how I have always felt. Like it's.
Oh, I agree.
Women are supposed to. It's your problem. Didn't you take care of that?
Right.
Definitely trying to get some fellas to come have that conversation with me, but of course that's just as hard as the abortion conversation.
Oh yeah, no.
But another convo for another day for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there is that. Great conversation. I thank y'all so much for coming through and speaking your truth and being very transparent about your journey and what has happened. Any last words, any last things you guys want to say before we get out of here in regards to this?
Just do what you need to do for you. I don't know who's all watching. I know it's live. I know I've seen a few comments. Like Miss Jenna said earlier, at the end of the day, I think social media being the way that it is now, people are so opinionated on other people's lives, but you do not know people personally. You don't know their lives. And even if you do, you still don't have the right to impose how you feel on somebody else. Stay in your lane and mind your business. That's pretty much what I'm going to leave everybody with.
All right.
And be supportive, of those people, even if you don't necessarily agree with their choice, regardless of what the topic is. If you truly love and care about somebody in your life, then you should just be a source of support for them and leave your opinions and your judgments to the side. There's no place for those. Yeah,
for sure. So I just want to say, just in regards to, this whole conversation, like if you're thinking about having an abortion, I think it is a conversation that you start with your partner. Or if you're single, whatever is going to be best for you, whatever that reason it may be. You have a hard decision to make, but it's your decision to make. Kind of like Vanity was saying, like-minded people in your circle is going to be your best bet. People that understand. And it's not everybody's business. You don't have to broadcast this to the world. I appreciate Jenna and Vanity coming through to have the conversation, but it's not a necessity. The conversation, I feel, needs to happen beforehand. Like, we need to be talking about, do we want kids? What that looks like. Understand what your life looks like with children before we even get to that point. Talk to these men about their commitment to being fathers just as well. Because that weighs heavily on the decision making sometimes. And so let's just talk about it. Let's just get more comfortable with talking about sex. I feel like sex in general is a taboo conversation. We need to talk about it because it's happening. Y'all are out here having sex, period. So talk about the babies, talk about the abortion, talk about the STDs, talk about all of these things.
All of that.
In the beginning. In the beginning, so that this does not continue to be a thing that people shy away from. Because this is our lives, guys. These are our lives.
Yeah.
So again, thank you guys for coming through. Thank you guys for watching and commenting and being a part of this conversation. Fellas, I need y'all to get at me because we need to have a conversation about these vasectomies. Snip. And y'all so serious about not being dads out here. But,
I'm telling you, we're part of the solution, not the problem.
Yes.
All right, y'all. This has been another conversation on As Told by Nay, the podcast. I will check you guys back here, probably not next week, but the week after. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's talk about it.
Thank you.
Bye.